Some news for the weight loss industry. President Joe Biden has greenlit millions of Americans with obesity to be eligible to be covered under Medicare or Medicaid coverage for drugs like Ozempic and etc. The Department of Health and Human Services has put forth this costly proposal Tuesday morning. It could cost taxpayers as much as $35 billion over the next decade. Celebrity fitness trainer Jillian Michaels has been outspoken about her disdain for Ozempic and for other weight loss drugs. Here's her take on this, what some people describe Ozempic as a miracle drug. Let's watch.
Number one, they're extremely expensive. Number two, you can never get off of them or you gain all the weight back and then some. Number three, there are significant side effects. And I encourage you to watch that debate and learn for yourself so that you can make the decision with your eyes wide open. And number four, and arguably the most important point for today, is that the reason that people are having an impossible time with regard to not overeating is because the ultra-processed foods you and I were just talking about are specifically, strategically designed to undermine our satiety and be addictive. And this is just one more thing that Bobby Kennedy will hopefully be rectifying when he gets to be the head of HHS.
RFK Jr. has spoken out against the wonder drug too. He's calling for tackling obesity and chronic illness through healthier eating instead. Michaels is on board with that. Let's listen.
You on board with that?
That's not necessarily what he's saying, but he is absolutely trying to reduce the amount of chemicals in those highly processed foods. In other words, he wants the toxic pesticides, herbicides, fungicides, chemical fertilizers out of the food. And to give you some framework on this, there's a historical connection to those chemicals and Agent Orange. So it's kind of a big deal and people just don't understand it. We have a loophole in the FDA that allows 10,000 chemicals into our food.
Now, Kennedy, of course, is the nominee from President-elect Trump to be the Health and Human Services Secretary. He has taken the pricey medication that costs upwards of $1,000 a month head on. But his war on obesity in the age of Ozempic could shake up the weight loss industry boom. Food startups like Foodbox RX, a healthy foods delivery service, reported a boost in venture capital interest since RFK Jr.'s nomination, according to Bloomberg News.
Regardless, not being confirmed to spearhead HHS yet, RFK Jr. is getting some reactions on X. Richard Hanania posted, quote, Biden going to have Medicare and Medicaid cover Ozempic, which needs to be done through HHS. Good move to do this before RFK and his friends take over. Founder of Conservative Ladies of America, Julie Barrett, posted, now Biden wants taxpayers to fund Ozempic and other weight loss drugs for people on Medicare. I spend most of my adult life in the health and fitness industry, and everyone is always looking for the quick fix. Newsflash, there are no shortcuts. So I wanted to discuss Ozempic on the program with you here, Niall, because I think this is a very interesting debate, actually.
It is.
I don't quite know where I come down on it. On one hand, I think Ozempic holds a lot of promise, not just for curing obesity, but for helping people deal with addictions in general. Drug addiction, alcohol addiction, this is something that is affecting a larger and larger number of Americans, and it shows real progress there, and it's so difficult to get people who are addicted to drugs and alcohol to quit using. The kind of group therapy and rehabilitation and all of that has a very slight track record for actually, it works for some people, it does not work, and it's very expensive and does not work for a large number of people. So some other cure, miracle or no, just having something else on the table is great. And so I don't share the automatic suspicion that Jillian Michaels and RFK Jr. have, because when you say things like, well, you have to keep taking it and then else you gain the weight back, I mean, that's true of any weight loss program. You have to eat healthy forever. You have to eat less forever.
If you cut out carbs and then you start eating them again, the weight that you lost comes back, right?
Yeah, and while I absolutely want to do what we can to reorganize society around healthier eating and outdoor activity, I think more outdoor activity for young people is very essential. How can we incentivize that? How can we, make it more common again for kids to bike to school and walk to school and play outside, that kind of thing? All for that. Vast societal transformation for our very obese society to have these health interventions is just really difficult, really expensive, is honestly impractical, whereas maybe something like Ozempic is not. All that said, the cost could be tremendous, and everything that's approved is going to be covered by Medicare, Medicaid. I do understand it's going to be a significant cost, and I don't know if that should actually be part of something the public ought to pay for. I can see the argument for no. Where do you come down on this?
So we'll get to the bigger debate in a second on some of those completely valid points that you raised. On the cost issue, I do think it's really important to just state the obvious, which is obesity costs the country a vast sum of money. According to the CDC, $173 billion a year is their estimate of that. Against that, the Medicare and Medicaid proposal is projected to cost $35 billion over a decade. Now, obviously, not every single obese person is eligible or on Medicare or Medicaid, but there would be very significant cost savings to us as a nation, as a society, if we could get a handle on the obesity epidemic, really. Now, that is a problem. That is a problem that needs to be addressed. The bigger question, I mean, I think, oddly enough, we both have ambivalences about this, because I do get the idea that if people can take Ozempic or equivalent drugs and lose weight, that may be an easier way forward than changing one's diet or habits. I don't think we need to sort of, in some ascetic, like monk-like way, insist that people lose weight through, changing their lifestyle. If they can do it with a drug, theoretically, okay, I guess. I'm critical of RFK in lots of ways. One of the things that I'm less critical of him about is his skepticism about the pharmaceutical industry writ large. The idea of, are you pushing drugs for profit that the same outcome could be produced some other way? Now, obviously, advocates of Ozempic would say, no, it can't. That's the question. Right,
and in the, this is a different kind of drug, and so far the evaluations looked pretty good. Like I saw something, again, a Ozempic critical person being like, there was a study that, for 1 in 5 obese people, it's not going to work. I'm like, what does that mean for 4 in 5? It does. That would be a tremendous track record. The weight loss programs you sign up for, the exercise regimes, people say, I'm going to get myself in much better shape. I'm going to lose a ton of weight for a variety of reasons. Those things fail. It's in the vast majority of cases. Even think of like the show where that Jillian Michaels came from, Biggest Loser,
right?
People, you read stories, people gain that weight back like that. It is really hard to change human behavior, and I'm someone who is skeptical, very skeptical, about using the heavy hand of government in particular to change human behavior. But on the not as confident about Ozempic side, I will say that the kind of mass prescribing of mood changing or antidepressants, those kinds of things, or for dealing with hyperactive kids that they all going to be on Ritalin or whatever, or Adderall, or all that stuff. I do have a lot of worries about the impact that's had, or just medicalizing normal. Disruptive or
young child behavior,
asocial behavior, and saying that the right solution for this is a drug rather than some other kind of working through it. I have a lot of skepticism of that. So if Ozempic is in that category, I get why people would be like, there's another thing to give to everyone. But the real need to lose weight and to fix severe obesity among Americans is an issue. This came out so clearly during COVID, where the worst most likely to be fatal outcomes were for older people and severely obese people of any age.
Sure, and I mean, there are enormous difficulties that are very much related to obesity, whether it's heart disease, stroke, certain forms of cancer, and all of that. I do take your point very much about Ritalin and ADHD and all of that, not to say that no one suffers from those as genuine ailments. Obviously, people do. But I do think there can be an over-prescription and to some extent over-diagnosis of behavior that is not actually evidence of some flaw. I guess the distinction would be, in the case of obesity, and I don't mean this in some comic, but I mean, you can see, like, you're not misdiagnosing a person if they're 300 pounds and 5'6", like they're obviously obese. So, that's the issue.
Yeah, this is going to continue to be a fascinating subject for some time. Maybe we'll try to get some dissenting or disagreeing experts to weigh in. I'm very interested to see what HHS does with Ozempic, where the various ideological sides end up coming down on this, because conservatives would say there's been a lot of demonization of being fit and healthy coming from fat acceptance left people, but of course, because left-leaning people are disproportionately now wealthy and better educated, that tracks with better health choices, so it's all over the place. It's going to be interesting.
It is an interesting debate for sure.
All right. That does it for us today on Rising. Thanks so much for tuning in. Please be sure to like, share, and subscribe so you never miss any content. And for those of you who like to listen while on the go, we're now available anywhere you listen to podcasts. We will be back tomorrow with our final edition of our show before the Thanksgiving holiday. See you then.